And a very good evening to you. I am Lisa Lord, and my special guest is the president of the Barbados Alliance to End Homelessness, Mr. Kemar Saffrey. Mr. Saffrey, thank you so much for joining us on your program.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
You're most welcome. Now, you founded what was then the Barbados Vagrant and Homeless Society back in 2009, and it was officially renamed in October 2019 to the Barbados Alliance to End Homelessness. I want to start by looking at some of the programs that you offer here at the Alliance on Spice Street, which is in the heart of Bridgetown, of course. In terms of food, you serve a daily breakfast.
Yeah, we serve a daily, but to the clients that are in the program. We used to have a breakfast program every single morning for clients on the outside as well. But because of the amount of other organizations and groups that would have, come in and asked if they can feed at that particular time, we would have stepped back, allow them to feed, and we assist where we can in terms of if we have items, we give it to them and let them go ahead and have the breakfast program. So in essence, we cover the ones on the inside, but then the other ones on the outside are covered. And sometimes up to 3 different groups feed in the morning between 8, 9, and 10. So they're still well taken care of or well fed in the early mornings.
And you offer lunch as well several times a week.
We offer more like a dinner in terms of like 4 o'clock. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, we offer that for our clients, and other groups are assisting on other dates. So whenever we try not to duplicate the feedings,
right,
especially the feeding time. So if somebody's feeding at 5 o'clock, I'm not going to feed at 5. I'm going to allow that organization, and all of us are in a group together, so we know what time others are feeding. If we as an organization, as we receive a lot of food items, we would then share that item with other groups so that they too can prepare a meal. So it is a collective group that is feeding the homeless, and all of us know the time and the date each other feeding. There are some other organizations who will come and ask to feed at that particular time, and we step back and allow them to, because they want to give back to the societies at large. So we allow persons to basically help wherever they can.
You spoke about catering to your clients. How many clients do you cater to?
So we consider all the homeless our clients. We do have a large database of persons that have registered with us, but we consider every homeless person a client because that's the community we serve. But we have staunch people that will come. Sometimes feeding could go up to 60, 70, 80. It could go up to 100. It also depends. Sometimes they hear a group is coming, like a catering company or a company is coming to do a feeding, you could see the lines in the 100, because they know that people are going to provide some fancy meal, and so they do come, but they choose to come when they want to. It also depends on when they get the welfare checks, when they get a little money, and the numbers could drop based on that, because right, you can find people coming one day, you can have about 70 and 80, and the next day you can have 50. It just depends on the money that they get, or depend on if they're some of them use drugs, if they're in a different place. Right? Some of them do go to prison, some of them do go to psychiatric hospitals. It depends on whenever, but you can roughly have more than 50 persons on an average feed-in day.
So outside of your clients now, you do offer shower facilities, bathroom facilities here for the homeless in general?
Yeah. Before COVID, we would have set at 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock bath time for those that want to come and just have a shower. We do have the shelter, so there's still a large number of persons that will come here and bathe and sleep at night. So, but there are a few that, because of their conditions, they may not think that they're fit for the shelter, and there's some that are not fit for shelter based on their mental health issues, but they may want to use the bath and they can come. But we haven't really started it back since COVID. But we use our discretion. So if someone come here and say, Mrs. Saffrey, would like to take a bath now to get a change of clothes, they're not going to get turned away. We're going to offer the service to them. But the clients have gotten to know that they can come here and that they can use the shower, they can use the facility, because it's for them. Yeah.
And you mentioned the night shelter, which caters to both men and women with their children.
Yeah. So the shelter, we started in just as COVID started. So we would open our doors to the shelter, I think it was the 2nd of January 2020. And we went straight into COVID and all the other things, the Saffrey volcano, the storms. But we would have, we cater to men and to women and children. I know you said just now women and children, but there's also men and children that come. We've had just about 2 or so cases with men that came with children, but predominantly women come with children, and we do have a nursery to facilitate that, that child, cribs and high chairs and different stuff in the shelter so that we can help with the mother to cater to the need of that child. If they have to feed them, if they have to sleep, because the beds are not big as well. They're normal. Well, less than a standard bed, because they're bunks. So you don't want to put the baby in the bed with the mother. So we end up having cribs for the babies. Or if you're a small child, you can still go into the crib. If you're much older, you can use one of the bed itself. So we cater to every need as there is for homelessness.
How many can you cater to in the men's dorm and the women's dorm?
So we have a facility that we can hold 90 persons at any given time. The women are just about 20 of the beds, and the rest is over to the men.
And just on mere observation, we know that there are more men that are homeless than women.
Yes, there are more homeless persons, more males that are homeless on the street than women. But there are more homeless women than men. And a lot of people don't understand that, in the sense that it's more easier to place a woman than it is to place a man. So you find that women could call around and go stay by somebody for 2 weeks, 3 months, and they're going around and going around. Well, for me, I might tell a man, you can come for 2 weeks, and after that, that's it. And we can exhaust that, as men, we can exhaust that threshold, faster than women. They can get through for years by going by people, especially going by men. But then there's challenges with that, because then they have to either give up sex. Some of them have to give up the children to men, but some women do, because they believe, well, we got a roof over our head, we got food in our belly, it doesn't hurt us. They don't know that it is hurting them in the long run, and that's how they think, and then they end up bouncing from place to place. Now that we have the shelter, we're seeing more women coming forward and saying, well, I don't want to do that anymore. I now know there's a shelter here that can assist me and my children. And I said children because we have women that come here sometimes with 5 children at one time. And so they come to the shelter for that safe place to stay.
You also offer daily counseling sessions here as well. Tell me about that.
So we believe every client has, or rather needs, counseling. We find that once we can assess them, when they come to the organization, we have several different types of counselors and several different types of counseling. So if a client comes, we assess them, and then they get to see the psychologist. They see the social worker first, and then they see the psychologist. And then the psychologist would determine from there what type of counseling the person would need. If they would need some sort of psychiatric evaluation or psychiatric assessment, if they would need life coaching, if they would need, we have counselors that focus, psychologists rather, that focus on goals and where do you need to be in the next 2-3 years. We set the counselor with them, and I said we work with a lot of life coaches if they need counseling beyond what we can, family intervention, the counseling to get them back home. Whatever type of services that they need, what type of counseling that they need, we will provide. So we have a pool of counselors that we pull on a day-to-day basis. Every single client has to see a counselor. Every single client, so that we understand where you're coming. Because sometimes they come to us and they talk to us, or they talk to the client relation manager, and then they want to, tell you the whole business. The client relation manager is not a counselor, so she's not trained to handle or to respond to that. We intake them, we take the information that is necessary, and then we pass them on to the psychologist, who would then determine where the person or which counseling is best for the person.
Which leads me to my next question. What are some of the main reasons why people end up on the street?
So most persons, even when they was going to school, would always associate homelessness with drugs. And obviously that is all we know. So, because nobody at that time would have done any assessment, no data would have been collected. The number one cause of homelessness is drugs. It's family, sorry. It's
Family.
family. A family is like a tree branch. It spawns off family disputes, especially land, especially housing, in terms of who gets what. There are people in the houses that have mental health challenges, and because we have not done a lot in mental health in terms of letting persons know how to identify mental health, or you see a family member behaving the way, you pressure them and say, well, you're a madman, you're an idiot. And that person can't take that pressure and decide to leave home, end up on the street. Then the family could not understand how to treat the drugs. And then they say, well, leave the person continue stealing from them or whatever the case may be. And that then leads to them becoming homeless because there was no treatment. There was no treatment for the person in the drug addiction. So they end up being homeless. So you find that when you look at the family, there's several layers that are breaking off that allows for it. The families also like to have, we find some simple thing as disputes leads people to homelessness. And we are trying to, when people come now, we're trying to say, hey, how can we address the family issue? Because I don't think a dispute, as simple as I can't get along with she don't like me, makes people homeless. Mental health in itself is one of the leading causes of homeless. Drugs is also a leading cause of homeless. Unemployment is now in the top 5 of reasons why people become homeless. COVID obviously would have expedited a lot of things. If homelessness, if we had predicted that unemployment would take 10 years to become one of the leading causes of homelessness, COVID would have speed up by a year, speed up faster. So what would take 10 years to happen is now 1 year. And we saw that because a large number of our population were homeless, and we still have not recovered from unemployment in Barbados. Landlord disputes, because of owing landlords and people misinterpreted things that they heard. Some people didn't want to pay the landlord and think that, oh, they had a gap or some, leg room, but that affected them being homeless as well. So drug isn't the leading cause of homelessness anymore. You could go from family, you could go to mental health, you could go to unemployment, and you could put drug underneath that as the cause of homelessness that we are seeing, that we've identified as homelessness. But there are 4 types of homelessness, which is what we call the episodic homelessness. So you're experiencing homelessness in different episodes of your life. You have the periodic homelessness. So people could be homeless today, get somewhere tomorrow. That's like more women. That's how they are. Then you have voluntarily homelessness. People are becoming homeless by volunteering to become homeless, I should say, because of the benefits of being on the streets. People could see that they're free food, sometimes 7 feedings in a day. Sometimes people could see that there is also the shelter here for free. They could go get a welfare check or voucher, and they don't have any sense of responsibility for anything. And the people stay homeless just because of the benefits and not having to have the responsibility as well.
You mentioned the COVID-19 pandemic, and you provided me with some statistics. In 2020, we had 99 homeless persons. In 2021, the number jumped to 149. And in 2022, there was another increase to 179, which we know was as a consequence of the COVID-19 pandemic. This year, so far, however, there has been a decrease to 119.
This number was actually given in, I think, May or June. So we still have to add our data from then to now.
So another 6 months.
So another 6 months. But I would say that this is leading on an increase.
Yeah.
Because if they have that much persons within that space of time, it's a lot. Remember, we cater to 2 types of homelessness. We cater to those that are existing homeless persons, and then we cater to those that are finding themselves homeless due to one of the 4 reasons I would have mentioned, or other reasons that I would have mentioned. So that is a problem, that you're seeing more people becoming homeless. And the more people that know about the shelter, we find that people are calling ahead and say, hey, I'm going to be homeless in 2 months or 2 weeks because I can't pay my rent. Landlords say I have to go, or whatever the reason is. People are calling ahead. We find people calling ahead and saying, well, I can left here because I can't deal with my mother. And we have to say to people, we're not going to take you. Because we know that once you get out of that house, you know, a brother, sister, aunt, or uncle is just waiting for you to get out of the house and don't return in 2 days. And somebody is moving. Or they feel that they have sole ownership of the house now and you can't go back in. So we encourage people, no, don't leave. If we need to speak to a family member, let us talk to them. Let one of our family counselors talk to them and see if we can find a solution, but don't leave home. Yeah, because people are just finding, if people think because the shelter is here and because they tell themselves they're homeless, or they categorize themselves homeless, by leaving home the same day and say homeless, they can come to the shelter. But you're going to cause the increase to go up. You know, we want genuine cases of homelessness in one of the 4 or 5 areas that we've identified, and not for you to create it for us.
And it's not just Barbadians who are on the streets.
No, it's not Barbadians, and it's not just black people, because sometimes people don't see that there are other ethnicity on the streets because they're not as evident out there. But we have people that are deported, and we have people that are stranded on the island because they don't have the necessary funds to continue their stay on island, and oftentimes find themselves homeless and use the shelter. And they come through the consulates or the embassies, and they end up here in the shelter. And sometimes the challenge with that is it's very costly. Meaning that on a Barbadian comes into the shelter at 6 p.m. and they leave at 7 a.m. A person from another country comes into this shelter at 6 p.m. They don't know where to go at 7 a.m. because they don't know Bridgetown or they don't know Barbados like that. An average person, Barbadian, will go and sit down in Freedom Park or Hero Square or whatever the case may be. That tourist doesn't know. So then they ask us, can we stay in? And we have to keep them in. When you keep them in, that's 3 meals a day. That's attending to whatever they have, any medical, any whatever, and that responsibility falls heavily on us. But we do help wherever we can. But it's not just Barbadians on the street. We've encountered people from all over, from as far as Europe, USA, Canada, as far as Germany and those other countries. We've Paris and those different places. We've had people. When persons are here that are not Barbadian, we will work with the consulates, or we will work with the embassy. There are 2 things that can be done, and we've facilitated both. In some cases, based on the embassy itself, they may have to agree to a repatriation flight, where or some cases they may have to agree to a family member paying for that, sending the money to pay for that ticket, and then they go back to their country. If in some cases that they cannot find the money to go back to their country, which is always the first resort, then that person can be deported or will be deported to their country. But deportation is hard because obviously it carries weight in terms of being able to come back to the island. But if it is the only option, then once working with immigration department, that person, once they have overstayed the time, because if they're here within that time that they're still within the rights to be in the country, then you don't do anything. But once we cannot find a way to get you back, then we say we recommend you over to a welfare department, and immigration department, and immigration takes over from there. Okay. And most likely you will be deported if you cannot find your way back to your country. What I've found though is that I would say out of the persons that I've dealt with that have been here from other countries, about 75% of them poses a mental health issue. And that has always been an issue for me. Because sometimes they're saying that in some cases, they come to the country, in one or two cases that we dealt with, and they say, well, somebody in my country trying to kill me. So I trying to get to this country, but I came through Barbados, got stuck in Barbados, or whatever the case may be. We've also had cases where in one case particularly, the mother that was here with her two children had an issue, a mental health issue, which she was trying to avoid in her country, and came here. And then we saw it, the mental health issue about 2 months after start act up. And then we had to then pull in the relevant agencies like the same psychiatric hospital, involve the police, and we had to also involve child care board. So those are things that I've seen in terms of people coming here, but the ones that we've helped, majority of them do have a serious mental health challenge.
We know that there is a stigma attached to the homeless, but do you find that generally Barbadians are insensitive towards the homeless?
I would say 10 years ago, yes, that Barbadians were very insensitive to it. I find now it's not as bad as before, I guess, because we spent a lot of time in the media. We spent a lot of time talking about homelessness, showing, I guess, like sometimes like the abuse on homelessness, on homeless persons have had persons think differently. Yes, this is human, because you will see the comments. So there's a human doing bare foolishness, and you start to see people being a little bit more sensitive towards homeless people. What y'all were going to do, that could be your mother, that could be your father, that could be your brother, that could be your aunt. So we find that persons are a little bit more sensitive. The more mature adults. What we would have done also would have spent a lot of time in the schools before, addressing homelessness from the school and from the young peoples, trying to help them to understand homelessness. Obviously, with the whole COVID and all of that, we were able to go back into schools as we would have wanted to. So I find that when we would have seen the abuse on the homeless from the young people, is that they've lost touch with that. But we used to go into schools pretty heavy and discuss homelessness. But I can say generally Barbadians now are more receptive to homeless people than they were before.
So you're looking to restart that awareness campaign more or less?
Yes, definitely you have to. And we have to do something called community partnership as well, where we need to go into these communities, especially communities in and around town, and we need to speak to them about homelessness and about homeless persons and how to deal with homeless persons, because they are within their community, right? But if we don't start from within the Bridgetown, where we are seeing more persons abusing the homeless, then it can continuously get out of hand. And every month, every couple of months, we'll be discussing this in the media about the violence on homeless persons, which is predominantly from the people in and around Bridgetown. So we need to seriously get in there and address these concerns, but also speak with the people and make sure that they understand. It needs to be stamped out.
You mentioned violence against the homeless, and we know we had a recent attack where several homeless persons were injured, one of them very seriously, but that was not an isolated incident. It happens several times.
Yeah, I mean, that particular incident has been happening for months, where these young persons were going out on a night and troubling the homeless. And that particular day just got out of hand. But then after that, there was still the abuse on homeless persons by the same group, because clients would come and say they came back out again. I remember being out one day as well in the evening, and 2 of the persons that abused the homeless right past, and it was like, look, them there. Thankfully, we were able to work with the Barbados Police Service, and several persons were apprehended and sent to Dodds, both the government industrial school, and the ones that were off age were remanded to emergency use prison. And then I think about 3 of them were sent home on bond, and then they're still supposed to reappear back into court. But we've had incidents before. We would have seen the slapping of the homeless by a couple of young children that went viral. We would have seen one incident where a gentleman would have thrown water on the homeless as well. So we are seeing it. My challenge is that is because there's so much elderly persons on the streets, they're not able to fight in the way that a younger person would. So it poses a problem that needs serious attention. And oftentimes I tell people that it is not just the work of the Barbados Alliance to End Homelessness. It is the work of every department that has responsibility for people. So if it is justice that need to be serviced, the Barbados Police Service. If it is welfare, if it is Ministry of People's Empowerment, Elderly Affairs, if it is psychiatric hospital, whoever, everybody has to play a role. So it makes the work easier for us, and everybody's able to address the concern that we have as it relates to the homeless community.
Well, we still have a lot more to discuss, Mrs. Saffrey. Stay with us. You're watching One on One.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Danielle Reed-Malilo and I am a general physician, and today we're going to talk about obesity. Obesity is an NCD. An NCD is a non-communicable disease. Basically, that's an illness that cannot be passed from one person to another, such as diabetes, hypertension, or cancer. In contrast, a communicable illness can be passed between one person to another, such as COVID or the common cold. The BMI is the body mass index. Obesity is defined as a BMI over 30, and overweight is a BMI over 25. Your body mass index can be calculated online or at your next doctor's visit.
Welcome back as we continue our discussion with the president of the Barbados Alliance to End Homelessness, Mr. Kemar Saffrey. Mr. Saffrey, in the first half, we discussed a whole gamut of things that you do here in terms of the range of services. We discussed the types of homeless persons that you have in terms of the reasons for them being on the street to begin with. We looked at the recent attacks, unfortunately, on members of the society as well. Now, with the greatest will in the world, there will always be some persons who want to stay on the street, that you cannot get them to leave the street. The street is their home.
That's the reality of this business. And I don't think that's the reality of Barbadians, because they would see a homeless person on the street and somehow believe that we are supposed to move that person off the street. But the person has rights. If we are oftentimes say we are like a hospital. We offer services to who come to us. But if we go to a person and we say to them, well, I found that you're homeless, how can we help? And the person says, well, I don't want any help. Mm-hmm. You have to turn away and try another day. Because anything more than that is harassing the person. You don't know the person's mental health. So if you go and you push, you can set off the person and we could be at risk. So there are some people that will be it. Ninja Man is somebody that we've seen for years. Ahmed and those characters that we know since we were going to school or from childhood. There's little that an organization like us can do for them by ourselves. But there is help. Because once those persons receive institutional care, for example, if you take Ninja Man off the street and you put him into, and I'm using Ninja Man so that people understand his name and not his real name, because persons probably don't know his real name. And you put him into psychiatric hospital and you give him a 2 to 5 year treatment in terms of, you're not just institutionalizing him, but you're giving him treatment on mental health and whatever else he would need. And then whether it be treating him for drugs, mental health, giving him life coaching skills, and you're retooling and reshaping that person, then they could come for the reintegration through us. I can see someone like him in 2 to 5 years back on his feet. I met a guy through a lady only this week, and he called and she reached out to me on Facebook, and she was like, this guy was homeless Do you remember him? I was like, when she sent me his picture, I was like, no, he doesn't look familiar. She actually had to send me his picture when he was homeless. And he is was a well-known homeless figure. And he was in the paper, he was featured in the paper. I don't think he expounded on the fact that he was homeless, but married. And this man looked good. And he was homeless, in my opinion, just as long as Ninja Man was. As hardcore as he is with his mental health and his drug addiction. But it calls for treatment. He said he came here, he was here at the shelter, he received care from here. And I said, well, come see me. Because I need to get that story. I need to hear you. What made you change? Where do you go? Whatever the case may be. We assisted in some aspect, but for the better part, he went on to becoming a better person. There's treatment and there is things that we can do for people, but we have to be willing to do it. Organizations have to be willing to do it. Government have to be willing to do it. And I believe we can be successful in taking the hardcore persons off the street, but there are persons that will refuse your service.
And there are, equally as we were discussing about attacks on the homeless, sometimes persons also fear the homeless. And you have said that you've seen persons acting weirdly, for lack of a better term, but you're not able to get them into an institution.
Yeah, I once met a gentleman that says, your job is not a threat. Homeless is not a threat to you. I thought it was the most stupid statement I could hear, because every day homeless is a threat to us. I've had my head burst by a homeless person with a garbage can cover. I've had homeless try to attack staff, and these are persons born with mental health issues and what's not. We need to treat to these things by, if we see some as an organization, I think that we've proven ourselves, we are a reputable organization, that if we see it, because clients come to us, we will see the unseemly behaviors. We should be able to assess them and recommend them for treatment. If you're saying to me that if I see a client behaving unseemly on the streets and I call an organization that is known to deal with persons that have mental health issues, you say, well, the person hit anybody yet? I was like, should I wait for them to hit? I'm telling you, the behavior right now is unseemly. They may be what you call shacking out, they may be shouting, screaming, they may be bunging at people. That is enough for you to come, or that is enough for me to say, I think you need to send somebody to get this person off the street, because this person is now a threat to themselves, and this person is a threat to society. So we need to address this thing. We need to address this thing quickly. And in some cases of here, well, if he ain't doing nobody name, we'll just left he. And the next day, he's in police custody, or she's in police custody, and before the magistrate court, and still going the same places that you recommend them to go to. And we need to address that, and we need to address that soon. Because if we don't, we run the risk of having people on the streets with mental health issues that are not going for medication. Medication is not coming to them, and their behaviors are getting worse and worse and worse, and they become a threat, as I said, to society and a threat to themselves. And I think that that's something that seriously need to address, especially for the ones that have mental health issues and not medicated at any level. They just, in some cases, 2 years have passed and they have not received medication.
You run a reintegration program here as well. Tell me about that.
So yeah, so most persons see the organization as this feeding ground. Also you all feed the homeless. No, we provide over 30 services to the homeless. But we believe that we are a rehabilitation and reintegrative type of program. So for example, if a client comes here who has a drug addiction, we say to the person, go to psychiatric hospital, get the detox, go to Verdant House, get the drug rehabilitation that you need for the 6 to 9 months, and then you come to us for the reintegration. That reintegration would take place in a program called At the Crossroad, where you stay into the shelter for about 6 months, could be up to 9 months as well, and you go through a number of programs, whether it be life skill, financial management, coping skill. We reunite you with your family. At the end, we try to find you a job. We try to do house placements through partnership with welfare department. We do everything to get you back into society, and we are reintegrating you. If you're not going to leave here unless we give you a job or unless we place you in a home. And so we're going to train you from here, retool you if you need to go to skill training, if you want to, whatever you want to, if you want skills, we could deal with stress management, anger management, coping skill. We make sure that we work with psychiatric hospital to make sure you get your medication. We bring in, we work with NCSA to make sure that you're educated on drug. We have life coaches here. So there's a lot of programs that they get. They have to take care of the shelter. They have to learn to do stuff. They have to work along with the wardens. All of this is retooling and reshaping the person. That's the reintegration aspect. So by the time they get to a house, they know how to clean the floor. They work along with the cook. By the time they get there, they know how to cook a pot, even if it's simple as boiling water. So because remember, homeless persons are not new to anything. A person becoming, I don't know why sometimes Barbadians think that because you become homeless today, that you don't know nothing, or you don't know it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're homeless so long, all you need to do is retool and reshape, and that person function. We have homeless here that are excellent cooks, that can clean really good.
So you do have living clients?
Yes, we do have.
How many?
So we try to do about 10 every 6 months, and because we are doing a rehabilitation and reintegration, but we do have people on the way. So for example, we're still referring people to Psyche, to Verdun, and then they're coming to us. So we try to make sure that within that 6 months we work with the person, because if you do the math, you're talking about well over a year that the person had been, because they'd spent 6 to 9 months with Verdun and they come to us for 6 months. They would have also gone through our continuing care program before, where we would have been, still would have been receiving counseling, they still would have been receiving group sessions. So they would be going through that cycle for well over a year, almost 2 years in total, before they reach back into mainstream society.
Let's look at the concept of transitional housing.
Mm-hmm. You mean from where we move them from here to transitional housing?
That's correct.
So yeah, because welfare does provide monies for transitional housing, we ask them to work along with us and get the person, once the person finishes the program, transition them into a room or a house. Sometimes they buddy up and they go into a house, and from that transition they're able to move on into society with a job. And we ask welfare to do not do that for more than 6 months, because the whole idea was to get them employment. So after 6 months, welfare can stop giving them any form of welfare, and the money that they work for could continue. And they have the option of coming back here in terms of meeting with us. If they have fall on any hard time, come back. If they're tempted by drugs or anything, they could come back again. And we will have the conversation, or we will continue the counseling session.
I heard you mention ensuring that they get work. How difficult is it for persons who were homeless to find jobs because of the stigma attached? We're a small country, but I remember seeing him out by the Central Bank.
It's not hard. I found that that's the most easiest part of my job, finding employment for the homeless. People call all the time and say, hey, can I get 2 or 3 persons? There are some companies that we work along with that call us on a random and say, do you have people that you can send to work? And we find that works really good for us in terms of, but we never send persons that are not rehabilitated and reintegrated. And if I could, like Harry Space is a major company that we work with that will, sometimes they want, in Christmas, they want people to come and help label the paints and different stuff like that. And that's a company that has been working with us to say we will give people a chance. And we don't expose the clients. So it's between us and the hierarchy of the business that we speak with, and we let them know the issues and what they've been through. And it's like a second chance program for them. And they get the opportunity to go into the world of work, and they love the guys, because the guys work. And they just wanted that second chance. They want that second chance. And I said, because you're not just sending somebody who is on drugs. You're sending somebody who would have been rehabilitated from drugs. And they're eager to work, they're eager to stay off the street, to find their way back in mainstream society. And we've had major successes in putting people into jobs. Yeah, there's some people come here and say, "Man, here you give John a job." I was like, okay, but John didn't get a job because it snapped my finger. John got a job because he worked towards the job. So here's an opportunity for you to work towards a job as well. This is what he did. And so we find that motivates others to come along for the program. But we've had major successes in terms of job placement, whether it be in the construction industry, security, cleaning firms, and those other companies as well. they take people from us and they work with them, and we've not had any complaints. We have a 3% revert rate, but that's low in terms of the amount of persons that come back into our program seeking help. And that's something because, not that they wanted to, but because they find themselves in a challenging position.
Life happens.
Life happens, yes. Any of us, it can happen too.
What more can government do to try to alleviate the problem of homelessness or eradicate it even?
I think we need to focus a lot more on policies. And I've been speaking with the Ministry of People's Empowerment on that we need to focus on policies. There are something we can do a lot if policy is put in place. So, for example, the organization should be at the position where we can assess and deem somebody a threat to society and refer to a psychiatric hospital. There need to be policy on how people are on the streets. So, for example, let me go back to this. You have organizations within government arms that have Care the Elderly program, but the Care the Elderly program is not extended to those on the streets. It's extended to those in the houses. But your homelessness is predominant on elderly. There's more homeless elderly than any other on the streets. So where are we focusing some of that? We need to focus some of that resources and that attention. You have community nurses that, whether it be from psyche, whether it be from QEH, whether it be from wherever, that we need to see in the fields, because you need to reach the people where they are. There are not much homeless people that are going to come to you. We saw that with the incident where the abuse was on the homeless. There were only one person I think I recorded that went to the QEH, but we had to then get urgent care to go on the streets to meet them where they are at. That's a cost to us, right? But so we need to reach them where they are. But policy has to drive. Where do we start to end homelessness? Where do we start to look at it seriously? Because the organization could only do so much. But we need to say, we are seeing women and children on the street. We need a policy around that. Because you can say, okay, a woman on the street, a child on the street, but that doesn't mean that there's a harm to the child. It is a harm to the child, because that child is now exposed to whatever. So we need to look at those policies that we protect the children. Where do we start to look at the homeless mental health state? Do they have to commit a crime to be institutionalized? Do they have a person on the street without medication? There should be a law governing that if you are on the street and you have a mental challenge, especially at the worst case chronic level, that you don't receive treatment, that you are found and institutionalized and given that treatment. Because if you're not given that treatment, then you become a threat to society. You become a threat to yourself. Sorry. So we need to look at policy that guides these things and change some of the archaic laws and policies that we have to help the individuals. Because at the end of the day, you're helping the individual.
Persons have raised concerns about the treatment they receive from the Alliance. One person in the press recently referred to it almost being prison-like when they were here, and they prefer to stay and not benefit from your services. How do you respond to that?
So the shelter has rules. The shelter has rules. I know sometimes Barbadians, when they read the comments and stuff, go on what they hear rather than what they see. We have a right to protect every individual here. I would rather be criticized for doing the right thing than for you to read in the paper that I left the doors open and a man went and troubled a child. And I said sometimes people that they like to hear that or they want to see that. When you're in the shelter, there's a lot of doors you gotta go through, and there's a lot of codes, there's a lot of camera. That is to protect the individuals in here. There's a rule, you have to bathe before you go to the dorm. So the shower is on one side, the dorm is on one side. That door to the dorm is closed off. And you have to go to the bathroom area. You have to have a fresh change of clothes. So the clothes that you sleep on, or that you are on the street where you cannot wear to bed. We provide the clothes if you don't have it. So that's fine. But that rule is there. You cannot walk about the shelter bareback. You cannot curse. You cannot, if you're drunk, we do breathalyze tests, you're not coming in. Because if you fall down and burst your face, it can be at us. If you are under the influence of any substances, you're not coming into the shelter. If um, your mental health poses a challenge for you to be in the shelter, to be around people, you're not going to be allowed in the shelter. We ask that you go to the psychiatric. They will refer you back to us once they think. And if you are on medication, you can have the medication, and our wardens will make sure you take your medication and keep you level, and you can access the shelter. If I don't know why people would think that that's a prison mentality, but that is to protect every single body. There's a floor for females and there's a floor for males. We protect our people. You have to be searched when you come in thoroughly. We want to see everything. I can show you a photograph when we did the search during COVID. We probably have about 50 knives that we collected from people. How it is that you are on the street, Lisa, you feel unsafe on the street already, laying down, and then you come in the shelter, and you go lay down, and the man got his knife, but he sleeping, and probably you tell he something, and he joke you. You don't want that. So my job here is to make you feel as safe as you are. But I want people to remember too, a lot of the homeless that have been on the street for length of time are not accustomed to rules. They're accustomed to free movement. And when they come here to the rules, it's difficult for them.
The Alliance is a registered charity, and charities have been severely impacted in terms of their donation connection. However, that's another area that persons also have some concerns with. Well, Mr. Saffrey is getting all of these donations. What is he doing with the money?
Well, people assume that we get all of this money because we're in the public eyes. You know, businesses that give never often time tell you what they give. You may see a big company giving. I remember the time we asked a company, one of the biggest companies in Barbados, we said we wanted $250 for an ad. They gave us $100. Now some businesses are doing press statements for themselves, and they're saying this company gave. Nobody knows what the company gave, but people assume because it's this particular name, they gave in this huge amount of money. That's not always the case. We're survived by the Maria Hoda Memorial Trust, who gives us yearly, our annual funding to assist with the programs and assist with the shelter.
So persons that make a donation to the Alliance can be guaranteed that the funds will be going to the right causes.
It can be guaranteed, and I'll tell you how it be guaranteed. We also have government as a funding agent. Government receives a report from us every 3 months, financial report on how we spend their money. The Maria Hoda Memorial Trust receives a financial statement on how we spend their money between every 4 months, 3 months, 6 months, a year. And then there's a financial statement because as a charity, the law doesn't state that we have to do an audit, but we have to do a financial statement. And that financial statement is submitted to corporate affairs every year. There's a penalty for not submitting financial statement. And as I was told, it's a public document that person can go to see. So our financial has been there from 2009, 2010, sorry, because we came on in October 2009, so to 2010 to current. That person can find our financial. We do receive our letters of compliance from corporate affairs as it relates to anything that they've asked us for. We comply. Because we know that people look at us, they think because I'm young, that the first and foremost thing I'm supposed to do is carry money from people. I don't need to carry money from persons. I work outside of this, consult in other countries. I do other things. I have other businesses. I don't promote them. I just do this as the main thing that is a passion. But people, when people donate here, people receive a receipt as well for the money that they give. And that also is put into the BRA system, the Barbados Revenue Authority system, and you are asked for your TAMIS number, and that TAMIS number is put into the system so that at the end of your BRA also sees how much was intake. And then we bring in the accountant, and the accountant would then, because we have an account clerk here, but the accountant would then oversee everything else and make sure all of the things. And sometimes we use external companies for checks and balances. So we are, and if Maria Hoda, who have been with for 11 years, didn't see an issue, why they're still giving? The government, if they have a discrepancy, why they're still giving? So those are two of the biggest funders, and they're not seeing any malice or mismanagement with the way we manage their funds. I don't see why we should start. And there are a number of companies that give, and we report to them, and we send them their how we spend. So we are very compliant with it, and we try to make sure everybody's happy with what we do with their funds.
On the topic of donations, I know that you're looking to raise enough funds to purchase this building here in Spice Street. How far off are you from that target?
So we've raised over 300,000 so far. We just have to raise about 600,000 more because the owners have dropped by another 100,000. So it only put us at 900,000 now rather than the $1 million mark. The good thing is that what we pay in rent, a portion goes to ownership. Okay. But we want to own the building because it is important. This is the only standalone building at this size in Bridgetown. At $1 million, it's cheap, and we are trying to get persons to assist us by, I think it was 2,000 persons to give $500 or 500 businesses to give $2,000. And that will help us raise our mark. We didn't want persons to just give dollars like that because it would take a little bit longer. So we say if you could give $500, you can either give it one time or over a 5-month period. That can help us purchase the building. And the thing is, Lisa, when you look at it, this is the only homeless shelter in Barbados, that has the bed count that it has. And it is the only female shelter in Barbados other than the battered shelter for women. But let's take that out because you have to be in a domestic dispute to get there. This is the only shelter in Barbados for females and children. And the amount of women and children that we've assisted over the last couple of years, if not for the shelter, a lot of people will be on the street, and you'll be seeing homeless more so in the pockets that you have been seeing them. So Barbados have to understand is important. I'm not going to own the building. I don't want the building. It's going to be in the Barbados Alliance to End Homelessness name. And if for any reason we decide to close the charity, it has to remain on the books of the charity or given to another charity. So it will never be in my name like I hear some people saying. But the part is, it's important that we have a shelter that's owned by the organization and that we can continuously do the work, because we have a 3-year contract with the owners to purchase the building. We've passed the 3 years. So at any point in time, this building could go back on the market and anybody can purchase the building. And the homeless organization become homeless too. And then when people can't be assisted, there's no other place. We don't have another location that we can say, okay, this is we can use this because we lost that one. We don't have it. So we want to be able to purchase this building. We want Barbadians to come on board, help us purchase the building, and we want to do more retrofitting of the building that we can do, because there's a lot we can't do because it's not our building. So we don't want to invest a lot of money into the building and then we hear, oh, it's going to this body or so this body purchase it. So we are encouraging Barbadians to help us with the $500 if they can, or give more than what they can at the Republic Bank account if they want to, or online, so that we can head to purchasing the building before the year is out, and we can have that, knowing Barbados comfortably knowing that there's a homeless shelter here.
Okay, well, Mr. Saffrey, thank you so much for sitting and talking with us this evening.
No, thank you for having me, and thank you. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate getting the message out there to those that, and I hope Barbadians are more enlightened now than ever before.
You're most welcome, and thank you again. That was Mr. Kemar Saffrey, the president of the Barbados Alliance to End Homelessness. I'm Lisa Lord. Thank you so much for watching. Do have yourself a wonderful evening.